Hey there, welcome into the College Basketball Bracket Science YouTube channel and podcast network. This show, we are going to be previewing Feast Week. It is one of the best weeks in all of college basketball, and it is getting even better with the addition of teams in the Players Era Festival. So the tournaments we're going to talk about in this show are going to be the Players Era, the Maui Invitational, which has a weaker field than usual, the Battle for Atlantis, ESPN Events Invitational, Rady Children's Invitational, Acrisure Invitational, and then we do have a couple of just random games on Thanksgiving. We got a big game in Chicago that we're going to talk about. It's a loaded Feast Week of college basketball. And for those who don't know, Feast Week has been going on for the past couple of days. We had the Baja Mar, we've had the Charleston Classic, we've had a couple of big games. So to start the show, we're going to talk about the results of those games because we did see Purdue win an MTE before diving into the meat of the show, which is going to be previewing all the games with the opening KenPom betting lines. So be sure to stick around for that, or if you're here just for that, skip forward a little bit because I'm going to start by talking about a few of the results. But before we do, be sure to like and subscribe to the show. We're trying to bring together the whole college basketball community, and follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Bracket Science with 2 S's. For those who are looking for, when we break down these tournaments, it's going to be by tournament. It's not going to be by day, but on our Instagram, it will be by day, every single day of the games for you to watch and where it's at, what time it's at. So be sure to follow our social medias for that. All right, before diving into that, let's talk about the games that occurred. Going all the way back to Thursday, the last time we talked about Wednesday's game. So on Thursday was the start of the Baja Mar, where number 1 Purdue took down Memphis 80-71. And on the other side, number 15 Texas Tech beat Wake Forest 84-83 in the first game. Nothing real special about Purdue in this one. Well, they were special in the second game. Don't worry, we'll get there. But Memphis really kind of controlled the game for a little while. They led with 7 minutes left, and then Purdue Aaron Bradshaw picked up a technical foul where he seemed to flop and then blamed the other person for himself flopping. I've seen too much of Aaron Bradshaw the past couple of years. I'm ready for him to graduate or go play somewhere else. But Purdue gets the job done 80-71, and then Texas Tech beats Wake Forest 84-73 to set up Texas Tech versus Purdue. And then in the Hall of Fame Classic also went on, where Kansas State beat Mississippi State 98-77. We just got to mention PJ Haggerty in this one. 37 points, 7 rebounds, 8 assists, 13 of 21 from the field, 4 of 7 from 3, and 7 of 8 from free throw. That sounds like a video game type number, and it is. PJ Haggerty is on an absolute tear, one of the best guards in the country. He's fun to watch. Kansas State's kind of fun this year. I like this Kansas State team. Last year, they were kind of the face of a lot of NIL money, but didn't do anything with it. PJ Haggerty seems to be worth just about every penny. For Mississippi State, they're in real trouble. We'll talk about them here a little bit more in a second. New Mexico loses to Nebraska on the other side to set up Nebraska versus Kansas State in the championship. Troy played USC in just not a Feast Week game, but just not an MTE game. It's still during the week, I guess. But USC escapes 107-106 thanks to a Jordan Marsh game-winning buzzer beater just heave that somehow found the bottom of the rim. Chad Baker-Mazara is at USC. For those who don't know, he had 34 points, 9 rebounds in this game, but what a fun game. For those who haven't seen the video, go look it up. It was pretty cool. Pitt loses to UCF 77-67. For those who don't know, Pitt is terrible. Pitt is, a lot of people expect Pitt to be around the NCAA tournament, as do I every year. This is not a good Pitt team this year. And then the only other game we'll mention is Utah loses a home bye game to Cal Poly. Yikes, rough stuff for Alex Jensen there. Let's keep going, get through these kind of quick. Friday was the day to know. This was the big day. Purdue dominates Texas Tech in the championship game of the Baja Mar, 86-56. My goodness. I turned this game off at, just a little bit after halftime. It was a complete blowout. I'm like, I want to go to bed. I'm not even going to stay up for this. Oscar Clough was awesome. 15 points, 15 rebounds. Not a lot of talk about Oscar Clough because Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, and Trey Kaufman-Renner are going to get all the love, and they are also really good. But Oscar Clough has been really serviceable. He's averaging a double-double so far this season. Texas Tech just shot horribly, 33% from the field, 23% from 3, 57% from the free throw line. You're not going to beat anyone with those numbers usually, especially not the number 1 team in the AP poll in Purdue. For those who don't know, this was kind of a rematch game of sorts. Purdue, a couple years ago when they were a 5 seed, played 12 seed North Texas. Grant McCasland, who's the coach at Texas Tech now, was actually the coach at North Texas there, the team that beat Purdue in a 12 versus 5 upset. So Matt Painter gets some revenge in dominating fashion here. Not a MTE game, but just another good game that went on. Number 6 Louisville beat Cincinnati. This game was played in downtown Cincinnati, not at the University of Cincinnati. Louisville wins 74-64. Yes, Cincinnati was an underdog by 9.5 points. They led by 9 in the first half. It was 15-6 at one point when I checked. I didn't catch a ton of this game, but Louisville fights all the way back because, let's give credit to Louisville first. Ryan Conwell, 25 points, 5 of 10 from 3. We know their offense is awesome. Mikel Brown Jr. was also awesome in this game. Gets to the free throw line like crazy, which I was not expecting from him this season. But I'm going to talk about Cincinnati just here for a second, because we talked in the preseason about how Wes Miller just refuses to adapt to an offensive-based system. He didn't go out and get a coach that has offensive tendencies. Wes Miller, we know, is a defensive coach. Cincinnati's got a great defense, but I know Sean Abev is supposed to be their guy, but he kind of struggled in this game. And, if he has any sort of bad game, that's what you're going to get. And that's why Cincinnati fans, I know, just living close to Cincinnati, that Cincinnati fans are very frustrated with Wes Miller. And honestly, they should be. He seems to be a guy who it's his way or the highway, doesn't seem to adapt. They have a good team. They should make the NCAA tournament this year. However, they should have made the NCAA tournament last year. If they don't do it this year, would not be surprised if they're going in another direction. All right, next up, number 23, Wisconsin, and number 9, BYU. This game was played in, not at BYU, but basically at BYU. It was, where BYU plays like their second home games. 98-70, BYU just dominates in this one. AJ Debance was good. Rob Wright had 11 assists in this one. Richie Saunders was their leading scorer, though, 26 points, 5 of 9 from 3. This was Wisconsin's first real game. BYU, by the way, did get Kibakeda back. It was good to see him back on the floor after suffering that rough injury against UConn. This was Wisconsin's first real game at all. They hadn't played anyone. John Blackwell struggled from the field. Nick Boyd was serviceable. Nolan Winter was good, 14 points, 14 rebounds. However, this kind of told me just more about BYU than Wisconsin. I still like this Wisconsin team. I think they're going to be good. This was a tough one going to BYU, but I think Wisconsin's going to be just fine. But BYU, this just shows how high their ceiling really can get. All right, so in the Charleston Classic, as we mentioned that we were going to talk about this, Clemson beats West Virginia 70-67. Georgia escapes Xavier 78-77 to set up a Georgia versus Clemson championship game, and West Virginia played Xavier. Xavier actually beat West Virginia. I wasn't expecting that one, but Xavier did win that game. And then on there's 2 separate Charleston Classic brackets. On the other one, it's Utah State and Tulane, and Davidson and Boston College. Utah State beat Tulane easily. Davidson beat Boston College. Boston College, yeah, it's going to be another long year for the Boston College fans to set up a good mid-major game between Utah State and Davidson. Speaking of mid-majors, a couple of them suffered some bad losses. Colorado State loses at home to Denver. Tough loss for Ali Farokhnamesh and Colorado State there. Evansville wins at Oregon State. And then let's go up and talk about the Hall of Fame Classic, which we talked about previously. Nebraska did beat Kansas State 86-85. Rank Mast is looking like, a solid, really good, underrated piece in the Big Ten yet again. This Nebraska team, they continue to have the longest winning streak in college basketball, and they look like a tournament team, in my opinion. I'm trying to see what they are up to at KenPom. They're up to 39th at KenPom right now. They're 6-0. They're beating good teams. They're beating Kansas State. This might be a dancing season for Nebraska ball. For Kansas State, not a bad loss whatsoever. PJ Haggerty, 27 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, continues to be on an absolute tear. Braden Smith is really good. Don't get me wrong. He's my pick as the best point guard in the country, but so far this season, PJ Haggerty, in my opinion, has been the best point guard in college basketball so far. But Braden Smith's still playing for the best team in the country, so he's going to get a little bit of leniency in that regard. But PJ Haggerty, not someone to overlook. In the third place game of the Hall of Fame Classic, New Mexico did beat Mississippi State. New Mexico, not the best New Mexico team, but a great win here. The ceiling, it's just going to be kind of a rebuild year for Eric Olin and company there in his first season there. Story here is Mississippi State, in my opinion, 2-3 to start the season. They are falling quickly at KenPom. It's Josh Hubbard and only Josh Hubbard. Mississippi State's in real trouble of missing the NCAA tournament this year. In the Baha Mar third place game, Memphis played Wake Forest, and thanks to a Miles Colvin game-winning buzzer beater against Memphis, wins 69-68. Big win for Steve Forbes and Wake Forest in this one. It was a great play at the end of the game. For those who didn't see it, go watch it if you haven't. It was a full court heave with 2 seconds left, a catch at the free throw line, pass it off to the 3-point line, executed beautifully, and gives Wake Forest a win. Wake Forest suffered close losses this season to Texas Tech, as we noted in the Baja Mar, and then also to Michigan. They lost in overtime, a game that they probably should have won. But yeah, this is a big one to get in the right direction. If they won Michigan and against Michigan and Texas Tech, they're 6-0 right now. We're talking this is the year Steve Forbes does it. You still got a chance. Like, the ACC is going to be better this year. You're going to have better competition, picking up some big wins in the in conference play, but good stuff for Wake Forest. Not good stuff for Memphis, who is 1-4. Yikes. It's not good. It's not good for Memphis. Aaron Bradshaw is getting technicals for flopping on himself, and then goes and it's an ugly time for Memphis fans. They might be looking for a new coach at the end of the season, but who knows? They're still the highest rated team at KenPom right now. However, they're getting caught pretty quickly, and they're falling quickly as well. So let's talk about the Greenbrier, where Virginia beat Northwestern and Butler beat South Carolina, setting up a Virginia versus Butler championship game. We'll talk about those here in a second. Central Connecticut State played at Rutgers and went and beat them. Rutgers and Penn State going to be your two worst teams in the Big Ten this year. I say very confidently. I know we'll talk about Penn State here in a second. Loyola Chicago is terrible. For those who do not know, this team was supposed to be good. I was very high on this team. They're terrible. They were a 16-point favorite in this one. Lose at home by 17. They are horrible. UAB beats South Alabama. Akron beats Iona. Let's move on and talk about Saturday's slate. Speaking of Penn State, they lose to Providence. Penn State, I know they got a little bit of hype because they were like undefeated coming in this game. They hadn't played anyone. This team's going to be a little bit shaky. If they end up 13th in the Big Ten, it'll be a successful season. Nevada beat UCSB. San Francisco beat Minnesota, who I'm confident Minnesota will be the third worst team in the Big Ten. Just fill in those bottom three. Who knows? The bottom might fall out completely for another team. But Northern Iowa beats UC Irvine, a good major matchup in overtime. That's the only games we'll talk about in that one. And then just earlier today on Sunday, Clemson beat Georgia in overtime in a really good basketball game. This felt like kind of like an 8-9 game. However, they're probably both more bubbly teams. A lot of energy. 97-94, Clemson gets the job done. They had a shot at the end of regulation, just kind of a little bunny that was missed, but they do end up getting the job done. And for those who watched, this was it was a really good game, but it was so unwatchable with all these stoppages from these refs. I can't remember who was on the broadcast, but I kind of liked it because I love when broadcasters just give it to the refs, where they're like, why is this taking so long? Why are we reviewing every little thing? These refs are whistle happy. Can't remember who it was. I wish I remember who it was, but kept saying it. And I'm like, yeah, I agree. This is just ridiculous. It was almost a 3-hour college basketball game. I know it went into overtime, but that's an extra 5 minutes. And we know overtime always goes quick. It's just ridiculous watching some of these refs this season. I know the NCAA, so I'm not even going to blame the refs. It's probably more the NCAA. They want more scoring. They want it to be more offensive based, but God, some of these games taking out some of the best players. A couple Georgia players fouled out, I don't know if any Clemson players fouled out. I can't remember, but just we gotta start swallowing the whistle a little more. And then in the championship game, Butler takes down Virginia 80-73. Butler, we say it every year. This team always has a decent amount of talent for the budget they have. They don't have a ton of NIL money. We're like, is this the year? Is this the year? This might be the year. And the Big East desperately needs it. Marquette is very down. We know UConn and St. John's are going to be good. Georgetown looks the part for sure as the third best team. And then Creighton hasn't really played anyone. They got drilled by Gonzaga, but they should still be towards the top. Then after that, it's who do you fill in? You got Villanova, who's probably fifth, and then probably Butler at sixth. You got Providence, but they've had some questionable losses already this season because of their coaching situation going on over there. At least that's what I believe. And obviously we talked about Marquette being down. So the Big East needs them. Maybe Butler and Thad Matta can, make some noise and get back into the NCAA tournament this season. It's just cool to see Butler basketball be good again, because the guys of my generation growing up watching Brad Stevens just dominate at the college level was really cool. Butler was a huge brand after that. And be cool to see Butler get back into the swing of things. That's going to do it. We do have some games that are going on right now, as we mentioned. Northwestern did end up beating South Carolina by 2. So that game has concluded, but that's about it for Sunday. All right, We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to dive into the Players Era Festival. We're going to preview every single one of those games with betting lines. To finding the best deals on Amazon, specifically college gear. It is my go-to for the holiday season, whether it is hoodies, long sleeves, or even t-shirts. I decided to put all these great deals that I personally find on my Amazon storefront. For the Bracket Science fans that don't want to spend a lot on college gear, this is the place for you. Take a look at our brand new storefront. The link is in the description. Even hit the follow button on there so you don't miss a great deal on the best college apparel. Alrighty, we're going to start with the Players Era Festival because this is the big one. This is absolutely great basketball. Starting at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. I am going to give the betting lines. I know they're not on here, but I will say them. Rutgers versus Tennessee. Tennessee's favored by 14 in this game. For those who don't know, all these games are played in Las Vegas, by the way, whether it's at T-Mobile Arena or the MGM Grand. I'm not sure where every single game is played in terms of these, but it's all in Vegas. So Rutgers versus Tennessee. I think the Players Era is probably regretting inviting Rutgers last season because I'm pretty sure they invited them last season because of Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, which, like, as you should. I don't even think Ace Bailey was able to play in the Players Era Festival last year, but yeah, now they're kind of hanging on to a struggling Rutgers team. But Tennessee favored by 14 in this game. Would expect Tennessee to get the job done there. And then we have a bunch of good matchups following that. Creighton versus Baylor at 2 o'clock. So you can see it's obviously not 2.5 hours in between games because there is going to be 2 games on at once, one at T-Mobile Center, one at MGM Grand. Creighton versus Baylor. Baylor's favored by 4 in this game. 2 teams that are, kind of coming in with a little bit of unknowns. Both lost a lot. In fact, Baylor lost everyone on their team, but they look like a really competent basketball team this year. So we'll see them when they play some good competition. Should be a fun matchup in that one. Kansas versus Notre Dame at 3:30. Kansas is favored by 6 in this one. However, no Darren Peterson for the Players Era Festival, which sucks because we don't get to watch Darren Peterson play in Vegas. Notre Dame, not bad at all. This is kind of a game to keep an eye on. Kansas has the best draw of any team in the entire Players Era Festival. We'll talk about that here a little bit more when we preview their second game, but would not be surprised if Notre Dame really gives them a run and even has a chance of beating them in this basketball game. Next up, 2 defensive monsters from last season, maybe just 1.5 defensive monsters this year. Iowa State and St. John's. Iowa State top 3 at KenPom in defense. We'll see what St. John's can be on the defensive floor on the defensive side this season under Rick Pitino, as he's always great on the defensive side. But yeah, we'll see. 4:30 p.m. Eastern time. Iowa State is actually favored by 2 in this game. Iowa State not to be slept on this season. They are all the way up to they're up to 11th at KenPom. St. John's is 16th. Actually, Iowa State climbed to 6th, and they dropped back down to 11th. Just a couple other big wins. BYU picked up a big win. Louisville won at Cincinnati, stuff like that. But Iowa State was up to 6, so don't sleep on Iowa State. St. John's a lot more talented than Iowa State, but Iowa State favored in the game. How about that? Love to see that. They're favored by 2 at KenPom in that one. Houston versus Syracuse, 6 p.m. Houston favored by 10 in this matchup. Coach Red Autry maybe on the brink of turning the corner for Syracuse. This team is really talented. They're healthy, according to Red Autry, going into this game. But Houston's a different kind of monster. 10 points kind of feels like a lot, but we know what Kelvin Sampson can do with that defense. We'll see what Kingston Flemings can do. Houston struggled in the Players Era Festival last year, went 1-2. They also got a pretty decent draw, sort of a decent draw. We'll talk about they have probably the best game of the Players Era, the next matchup. So we'll talk about that, but fun matchup there. 2 big brands, 6 o'clock, Houston and Syracuse. At 8 o'clock, Auburn and Stephen Pearl taking on Oregon. Auburn favored by 5 in this game. 2 teams I'm a little lower on than most. Oregon has kind of really fallen. In fact, they are down to, they're 58th at KenPom right now. Auburn is 21st. So Auburn's favored by 5 in this matchup. I like Auburn to get the win. However, we'll see. We'll see. Oregon has experience. They're defending champs of the Players Era Festival. We probably should note. So if that means anything, but that should be a fun one. An even funner one. This is going to be tremendous. Gonzaga versus Alabama. This is probably my second favorite game of these first 2 days. Gonzaga versus Alabama. Alabama's putting together a non-conference to remember. My goodness, what an absolute gauntlet. And now you draw Gonzaga, who is number 3 at KenPom right now. Alabama has just, they put together a schedule every year that has a chance to be a 1 seed. They have chance to be a 1 seed every single year. They struggled in the non-conference a couple years ago, and they played so many good games that they ended up being a 4 seed in March Madness and made the Final Four. So Alabama, Gonzaga, a great matchup. Gonzaga is favored by 5 in that one. I don't expect the line to be that big when the betting lines come out. Michigan versus San Diego State at 10:30. San Diego State had a good Players Era Festival last year, they beat Houston last year. Michigan is favored by 5 in this one. A fun front court matchup here. Ade Mara taking on Magoon Guath. See what Miles Bird can do against a Michigan defense that should be really good. I would lean Michigan in this game, quite frankly. San Diego State did suffer tough loss to Troy. Michigan has looked a little shaky as well. So I'm curious to see that matchup. And then at midnight, UNLV versus Maryland, probably a game a lot of people won't watch, including myself, unfortunately, for Buzzball and for Josh Pastner there, but probably won't be staying up for that one. But Maryland favored by 2 in that matchup. And then on Tuesday, so how they're doing this, 2 days of action. You play 2 teams, and then the final day, I'll just pull up that graphic real quick, and then we'll go back. The Premier Four, this is what they're calling it, on November 26th, which is Wednesday. The championship game will be at 9:30. Third place game will be at 7. So this is based on, obviously, you're going to have to be 2-0. And then it's on point differential. However, it's capped at 20. So you can't, you could, if Houston beats Syracuse by 33, they're capped off at 20, excuse me. So that's how this is going to take place. So kind of just keep in mind where some of these teams are playing. Notre Dame plays Rutgers in the opening matchup. I like this draw for Notre Dame as well. Like we said, they get to play against Kansas without Darren Peterson. If they can pick off, a win in that one, then you get Rutgers, who is, in my opinion, I think they're worse than UNLV, honestly. So if they can get a good draw here and take down Kansas and beat Rutgers, Notre Dame might be a sneaky team to pick to be in the championship game of the Players Era Festival. Then we get Iowa State and Creighton, 2 teams that are kind of close in proximity to each other. This game's at 2:00. In the opening matchup, Notre Dame is favored by 6 over Rutgers. And in the second matchup, Iowa State favored by 8 over Creighton. Creighton not very highly ranked at KenPom right now. In fact, they are 51st. So yeah, they're dropping off a little bit, but we'll see if their offense can be so prolific that it's hard for this Iowa State defense to stop. And then Kansas versus Syracuse. So just like we talked about Notre Dame, Syracuse is probably going into the season, your 3rd worst team in the field, behind Rutgers and UNLV. You can maybe make the argument for, maybe Notre Dame, but I kind of like Notre Dame a little more than Syracuse. They're close though. So Kansas gets Syracuse and Notre Dame. A really good draw for this Kansas team. If they had Darren Peterson, they'd probably be the most popular pick to make the championship game. However, without Darren Peterson, we'll see what they can be. Kansas is favored by 4 in that matchup. Don't be surprised. Syracuse is a good team. They are a solid team this year. They have a lot of talent if they can make some noise and, win this basketball game. If Kansas goes home 0-2 without Darren Peterson, it's raised the panic flags. At 4:30, St. John's versus Baylor, a rematch of the Baha Mar last season where, remember Jeremy Roach knocked down a buzzer beater against that St. John's team. Yeah, that was a fun one. So they get a rematch here. St. John's is favored by 3 in that one. Expect a high-scoring affair in that game. And then this is my game of the tournament. Houston versus Tennessee, the battle of the big boys. They matched each other matched up against each other in the Elite 8 last year. 2 incredible defenses, 2 incredible defensive coaches. Best game, in my opinion. Houston favored by 3 in that one. I expect it to just be an absolute dogfight of physicality. Can't wait for that one. Michigan versus Auburn, a rematch of the Sweet 16 last season, also known as the Trey Donaldson game. Trey Donaldson playing against that Auburn team last season. Not at Michigan anymore. I guess I should probably note Elliot Cadeau is their point guard now. But Michigan is favored in that game by 3. We'll see what Auburn can do against Michigan after, playing that game against, kind of a really beatable right now Oregon team who's struggled early in the season. So maybe a decent draw for Auburn as well. Gonzaga gets Maryland in the next matchup at 9:30. Gonzaga favored by 12 in that game. I like this Maryland team. I think they're a little better than people expect, but Gonzaga's offense really good. They should win. Oregon versus San Diego State. San Diego State favored by 3 in that matchup. And then the midnight game is Alabama versus UNLV, where Alabama's favored by 13. So a lot might ride on that Alabama-Gonzaga game, because if Alabama beats Gonzaga by 8, then they get UNLV, who they probably could beat by 20. Same goes for Gonzaga. If Gonzaga beats Alabama by 8, and then maybe they can beat Maryland by 15, you might be looking at them in the championship game as well. So weird little setup. I'd rather see more of a bracket style setup, but it is going to be fun. Once again, championship day will be on Wednesday, and then Wednesday and Thursday there will also be consolation games going on as well for so maybe we'll see some really other good matchups, as we will, because every team in this tournament is good, all top 100 teams. All right, now let's talk about Maui. Let's talk about the Maui Invitational, which does not have as good of teams this year, unfortunately. Starting with NC State and Seton Hall. NC State is favored in this game by 8. Seton Hall is still undefeated. Something to kind of keep an eye on. Shaheen Holloway, really good coach, won the NIT 2 years ago, just doesn't have a lot of money, and he does less with more. Dyslexic. He does more with less than a lot of other coaches, but I do expect NC State to win that game. USC versus Boise State. Boise State has been better since losing to Division II Hawaii Pacific in their opening night matchup. USC is favored by 5 in that one. Don't be surprised if Boise State gets away with a victory in that one, but USC is favored by 5. Washington State plays Chaminade, Division II school, so there is no line in this game. And then Texas plays Arizona State. Texas favored by 6 in this matchup. It's a bad Maui field. It's going to get killed by the Players Era Festival, as it's showing right here. Not a ton of high-end talent. NC State, I think, is really good. However, these are still fun matchups. I'd be curious to see NC State versus USC / Boise State, and then Washington State versus Texas, probably. So if we can get a Texas versus NC State matchup, that could be, fun. But yeah, just kind of tough for Maui right now. Alrighty, let's talk about the Battle for Atlantis now. In my opinion, the Battle for Atlantis a little bit more fun than Maui this year. I think I just kind of like the field a little better because they're really leaning into like mid-major powerhouses and like lower, not. I don't mean this to sound this way, but lower brand. Like, we're not going to bring in Kentucky, like the Vanderbilts, Virginia Tech, but are good teams. Like this year, I love Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's like top 15 at KenPom right now. Virginia Tech, and then St. Mary's. So this is a really good field, in my opinion, for the Battle for Atlantis. I like they're leaning into this sort of style. So we get Vanderbilt versus Western Kentucky. Vanderbilt favored by 18 in that game because they're ranked so high at KenPom. Vanderbilt's fun. I love this Vanderbilt team. Mark Byington, just a tremendous basketball coach. That's all I'll say. VCU versus USF, excuse me, in the second matchup. Two teams where VCU might be the best team in the A10, although the A10 is really good, and USF might be the best team in the American, especially with Memphis struggling. So a good mid-major matchup there. VCU favored by 3 in that one. Colorado State, who we mentioned just lost a home game to Denver, plays Virginia Tech, fun team this year. For those who haven't watched Virginia Tech, go watch them this year. They got a foreign guy who can really score the basketball, Abdalas. Virginia Tech only favored by 1 in that one, though. Wichita State versus St. Mary's. St. Mary's is awesome yet again. St. Mary's favored by 8 in this game. So hopefully, as just a media person, as someone who roots for the best games, hopefully we get a St. Mary's versus Vanderbilt, because that would be like two of the most underrated coaches in the entire country going up against each other. Randy Bennett's awesome. Mark Byington's awesome. That's kind of the game I'm rooting on. But as we know with the Battle for Atlantis, what we expect never happens. All right, let's move on and talk about the ESPN Events Invitational, specifically the Magic Bracket, where BYU will play Miami and will play the winners. Will play the winners. Losers will play the losers. Georgetown and Dayton on the other side. So BYU, AJ Debinsa, and the BYU team that I said has a incredibly high ceiling, and they do, taking on Miami and Jay Lucas, who looks like they could be a bubble-ish team this season. Georgetown has been great. Dayton in a good spot here to potentially pick off a win against Georgetown. And then even if you lose your second game, you kind of build up a little bit of an at-large resume right now, as Dayton in the A10 have, a little bit of a disadvantage just playing in a mid-major league. But yeah, this is going to be a fun one as well. This will take place on Thanksgiving. Yeah, Thanksgiving, and then Black Friday right after that. All right, next up is going to be the Rady Children's Invitational, which these times are obviously in Pacific Standard Time, but so convert that to Eastern Time. 12 o'clock Pacific Time on FS1. Florida versus TCU. Florida looking to kind of rebound off of, kind of a little bit of a, they've been fine. They've been absolutely fine. They're fifth at KenPom right now. They've been absolutely fine. I know they lost to Arizona in night one, but they picked up good wins. They beat Miami, Florida. They escaped Florida State, but I think Florida State's going to be better than we might expect. They will probably beat TCU and play the winner of Wisconsin versus Providence. Like I said, we still don't know a ton about Wisconsin. Providence has a good team, has a talented team. However, the coaching edge, I give it heavily to Greg Gardner. So hopefully we get Wisconsin versus Florida, because that would be a really, kind of the premier matchup that we're looking for. Those games will take place on Friday. All right, up next, we're just going to pull up one game that's going to go on in the Acrisure Classic. This is kind of the only one to really note. Then we'll get into, there's like an Acrisure Classic, Acrisure Invitational, Acrisure Holiday Invitational. So this is really the only one to know in the Acrisure Classic. Ole Miss versus Iowa. Iowa favored by 1 in that matchup against Chris Beard versus Ben McCollum, 2 of the best coaches in all of college basketball. Can't wait to see Ben McCollum and this Iowa team, play a high major team, specifically the SEC. Should mention in the previous couple ones, BYU is favored by 8 over Miami. Dayton's favored by 1 over Georgetown. So Dayton is favored in that one. And Florida is favored by 13 over TCU. Wisconsin's favored by 5 over Providence. And Iowa favored by 1 in this matchup. Now, the Acrisure Invitational does have some key matchups in this one, starting with Colorado versus San Francisco at 11 a.m. These are actually Pacific Standard Time. So convert those to so this will be played at 2 o'clock Eastern time. I think I did that the right way. 2 o'clock on Eastern time. San Francisco favored by 1 in this one against against Colorado. Washington versus Nevada in the second game. Washington's favored by 7. Nevada not great this year. 4 o'clock, 7 o'clock Eastern time, a really good mid-major matchup. St. Louis and Santa Clara, 2 teams that could realistically be at-large teams this upcoming season. St. Louis under Josh Schertz still has Robbie Avila, so go watch Robbie Avila. And at 9:30 Eastern time, Minnesota versus Stanford. 2 really good coaches, Nico Medved, Kyle Smith. Stanford's a little bit better than people think. I think Stanford has a good chance to win that game and maybe even win another one in this tournament. All right, now we're basically going to be talking about the random games. On Tuesday, the 25th, 8 o'clock FS1, Kansas State versus Indiana. PJ Haggerty, must-watch TV. Go watch PJ Haggerty. He's taking on this Indiana team that still has not lost under Darian DeVries. PJ Haggerty taking on Tucker DeVries. We got to watch that one. That's going to be a lot of fun. Tuesday, 8 o'clock on FS1. And then finally, on Thursday, this is going to be on Thanksgiving, 4:30 on Fox. This is the Fort Myers tip-off. This is the only game of note in that, so it's not really a random game, but, kind of. Number 18, North Carolina versus number 17, Michigan State, 2 blue blood programs, 2 teams that look really good to start the season. Michigan State, incredibly well coached, obviously. North Carolina's positional size versus Michigan State's just physicality is a really fun matchup in that one. Michigan State is favored by 2 at KenPom in this one. Going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait to watch this game. Hubert Davis, Tom Izzo taking on each other. Duke versus Arkansas, number 5 Duke, number 21 Arkansas. Obviously, these numbers will change by the time it's after tomorrow with the Players Air Fest with the Players Air Festival. Yes, the Players Air Festival, but also the AP poll coming out. This is at 8 o'clock on CBS. Duke is favored by 9 in this. I don't expect that number to be that big. Arkansas's got a lot of talent, and I would take them to cover 9 if it ends up being 8.5 or 9.5 is the spread. And then 10:30 Peacock. Oklahoma State versus Northwestern, kind of a fun matchup here. Oklahoma State also really underrated this year. Steve Lutz has done a sneakily really good job in year 2 to start the season. The team can really score the ball. And Northwestern also highly ranked. We mentioned they just did pick up another win, so they might be 5-1 now. This graphic was before that, but Northwestern pretty solid team. They're favored by 2 in this matchup. And then on Friday we're going to come back and talk about we have Illinois versus UConn on Friday, and we're going to do just a huge recap of all the games that took place over Feast Week. It's probably going to be a long show. I tried to keep this one a little short, and I know it might have been a little more of a boring show, just talking about, just kind of laying out the games to kind of watch out for. I wasn't going to give a bunch of takes because it's just trying to, kind of get the information out there of what to watch out for in the big games to kind of keep an eye on. So for more stuff like that, be sure to follow us Instagram and TikTok at Bracket Science with 2 S's. Like and subscribe to the show. We do a lot more betting content and a lot more. This was more of just an informational one for those who are new here. We do a lot of just, picks and stuff like that, rankings and stats and all kinds of stuff. So be sure to hit that like and subscribe button before heading out. Follow us on our social medias. Enjoy Feast Week. Everyone have a happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. Come back on Friday. We'll talk to you on Black Friday discussing more college hoops. See you later. Happy holidays.